What is your best screw it, I'll do this moment? Story 1. Through a truly stupid series of circumstances, I fell in a very cold creek on the outskirts of my hometown in the presence of my best high school buddy. It was partially his fault. That's my story anyhow. I'm drenched and cold. We get back to my car and I open my trunk hoping I've got another coat in there. Nope, all I've got is this ugly butt long sleeve button up silk shirt. Why? Because it was freaking 1993, that's why. Now, I've got cloth seats in my little late 80s Nissan, so I'm not getting in the car soaking wet, and nothing has been better than being cold and wet, so I proceed to strip naked, then wrap the silk shirt around me and tie the arms together around my back. It's like an ugly long sleeve loincloth. I use the windows to sort of pin my clothes to the outside of the car, hoping the wind will dry them out a bit. That's right, all my clothes, undies included, are now on the outside of my car. I get in the car and start to warm up. My friend is almost peeing himself laughing at this scenario. He asks me if I'm actually going to drive like this, to which I say, "You bet your butt I am." As we're getting into town, I look at my fuel gauge and chuckle. "Hey man, guess what?" "What?" "We're almost out of gas." He frowns. "Oh crap, man. Let me get out and pump." "Oh no, dude, I've got this." We cruise right down Main Street, passing not one, but two of our high school cheerleaders on the way. We stop at the gas station at the end of the street, and I proudly stand at the pump in my loincloth, waving at the people who honk and point. My friend has ducked as low as he can in the seat to avoid being seen. We get to my friend's house, and here I'm walking in with my still wet clothes in my supple silk loincloth that I'm starting to kind of like. My friend's mom takes one look at me and says, "I don't want to know," then turns and walks away. Story 2. Every family has their problems, but stuff hit the fan with mine. I didn't have much money, but I ditched everything and booked a ticket to Thailand, where I ended up living for a summer. I recently picked up kickboxing, and as someone who does not drink or do drugs, I just figured I would train twice a day while I enjoyed getting in the best shape of my life. It just started out as training, until one of my trainers suggested I should actually do a professional fight. I just went along with it, and it didn't seem that big of a deal, accepting the offer then and there. They took a quick photo of me and, whatever, continued training. The gym was located on the outskirts of town, so me and some Aussie training buddies suggested that we go into town, get some food, and hit the beaches. That freaking photo they took of me was all over town, on buses, billboards, magazine pamphlets. It was crazy. It was like I was in a dream in some foreign world where everyone instantly respected me, all because I was fighting on this card. Mind you, I have no competitive history. I didn't even do any high school sports, and in my opinion, I don't think I'm that athletic. Anyways, 2 weeks later, after training 2 times every day, fight day comes around at Patong Stadium, and I just about pooped my freaking pants. My opponent is a native Thai with 81 fights and is 28. I am 19 years old, a skinny butt white kid about to go to war, and all I want to do is cry like a little girl. Right before I walked out, the spectators placed bets and touched you up like some gladiator about to get red-rummed. At that moment, as soon as I touched that ring, screw it, I'm fighting as hard as I can, and I'm going the freaking distance, win or lose. I just figured this guy will have to end my life to end it early. I lost. No surprise, my opponent was a veteran compared to me being my first fight. However, I went all 5 rounds and fought hard for 15 minutes. Keep your hands up and keep pushing forward in the ring and in life. Best screw it moment I think I'll have. Story 3. We were at our high school's field day, and that year we happened to go to a beach. About an hour or so in, some guys who were playing football threw the football about 30 feet into the water. Due to the fact that we live in Washington and the water was cold, no one brought swimming material. The dude who brought the ball is freaking out as it was signed by some famous football player. Enter me. I decide, screw it, I'll do this, and swim in after the ball, which at this point was about 40 feet in. Before I go into the freezing water, I decide to take off my shoes and my phone out of my pocket. I'd neglected to consider my wallet or the fact that I was wearing skinny jeans and a t-shirt. Despite that, I swim out to retrieve the football, succeed, and return to shore. Guy thanks me and goes back to his game. Well, shucks. My clothes are drenched in water, roughly $30 in bills are now soaked, and I have nothing to change into. For 20 minutes, I walked around in wet clothes, asking around to see if I could borrow extra attire from anyone. I got a pair of girls' pink yoga pants. I freaking rock those yoga pants. Moose knuckle and all. Story 4. Girl I was interested in fell asleep beside me in my tiny one-room place, whilst we were watching some 30 Rock after having already watched Die Hard 3 that night. This is only the second or third time she'd come over like this. Episode finishes, I'm trapped under this girl, so I closed up the laptop with my foot and turned off the speakers. She's still asleep. Since we were sitting across the bed, things were a bit awkward. I try to sleep, but it just doesn't work. I pick her up and turn her around the proper way in the bed, then lay down and try to fall asleep beside her, but with a respectable distance between us. Hours go by. I can't sleep. I'm wondering the whole time if she intended to fall asleep here, or was she just exhausted? I debate with myself whether I should try to make a move or not. Somewhere around 3 or 4 a.m., say, screw it, to myself, I lean in and give her a little kiss on the cheek. She responds positively. Cue some very passionate making out over the next who knows how long. Turned out she had fallen asleep on purpose and had been waiting for me to make a move all night. We've now been together 16 months and are planning to get married next year sometime. Great success. Story 5. I'd been staring at this girl in my class for months. Ever since I saw her for the first time, I knew the day would come when I'd be hopelessly in love with her, but wouldn't be able to do anything but watch her being talked to by all the D-bags who obviously thought she was hot and eventually starting to date one of them. Then one day we were left alone in a room for about 15 minutes, and I thought exactly this. Screw it, I'll do this. I hadn't prepared for that moment, and I didn't have a little speech or a plan. I just spilled my little heart out to her, told her everything and all about exactly how I feel. No games, no playing hard to get, no beating around the bush. We are now together and both hopelessly in love with each other. That was the best decision I've ever made, and I still can't get my head around how and why it actually worked. I can't believe that it did, but I couldn't be happier about it. Story 6. My senior year of high school, I fell head over heels in puppy love with possibly the most crushed boy in school. He was on the football team. He was one of the homecoming princes. He was lead in the school play and musical. He was editor-in-chief of the school paper. Valentine's Day was the last day the musical would run. I think it was The Ugly Duckling, but I'm not sure. And I was backstage doing lights with one of my best friends, who knew about my crush. He was doing sound. Near the end of the musical, when the cast was gathering to take a final bow, he moved this rope that kept the crew from walking where we'd be visible, looked at me, and pointed his head toward the stage. I got in a lot of trouble with the theater director and never worked on a play again in high school, but with my legs shaking so hard I was surprised I didn't fall, I walked up to him and kissed him on the cheek. We only went out for 3 days and 2 dates before he had to leave for the Navy, but whenever I'm scared, I tell myself, it can't be worse than kissing your crush in front of your classmates. I'm going to guess that this story took place some time ago, considering that nowadays it doesn't really seem appropriate to take this chance and try to kiss someone who has shown no interest in you yet or whatsoever. Or maybe it did occur recently, and that just makes it even more of a blunder. But that's what makes situations like this so risky. There's a lot to gain if it works in your favor, but if it falls flat, then you got some splaining to do. On a separate note, though, who does this dude think he is, being the head honcho of every extracurricular at the school? Save some accolades for the rest of us, homie. I bet he was also valedictorian and volunteered at an animal shelter, the way this OP describes him. Anyway, I did look up the play that she referenced, and it's actually called The Ugly Barnacle. It's about an ugly barnacle that was so ugly, everybody died. Story 7. In late 2010, my friend asked me if I wanted to do a through hike of the Appalachian Trail. At that point in my life, I was a college dropout, waiting tables at 2 restaurants. I was unsure about what I wanted out of life. I have absolutely no motivation to do anything besides sit around and smoke pot. When he asked me to do this 2,181-mile hike, which takes 4 to 6 months to complete on average, I had very minimal hiking experience. But I agreed to go, with no real expectations to finish, just to get out of town for a while and get some fresh air. We started on March 19th, 2011, and I finished on September 18th of that year. He finished on August 14th. I made many lifelong friends, saw many beautiful sights, and learned a lot about myself that I didn't know. I never knew I had the mental capacity to complete something as hard as that. Now I'm back in school and know exactly where I want to be in life, because I said, screw it, I'll go. I've grown to be a stronger human being in my eyes. It was by far the best decision I ever made. Story 8. My girlfriend cheated on me in May. I was so sad because I really loved her. I remember spending hours upon hours online looking for things to cheer me up. I checked an old email account that lay dormant for a good year or so. It contained a bulletin for expedition vacancies that I had signed up to and saw an ad for a sailing expedition to Greenland. I said, screw it, I'm going. And I did. I spent 4 months sailing from Ireland to Greenland via Iceland and back home. I saw volcanoes, polar bears, ate whale and muskox, caught hundreds of fish, learned to stitch leather and repair sails, got chased down by the Danish Navy, who just wanted to say hi, sledded down a 2,000-meter mountain, and oh, the list goes on. That was the best decision I've made. I've made several bad ones since I got home, but I'm working on it, and hopefully I will be able to go on a new adventure soon. I can't wait. Story 9. On a drunken night out, me and some friends of mine messed around on the grounds of a school in the town we were in. We climbed up onto the roof following a friend who attended the school and knew how to get up safely. We got up onto the 3rd-story level to discover the scaffolding he used to climb down before had been removed. The choice was spend an hour painstakingly clambering to the other side of the building to climb down easily, or try and make the jump from the roof we were on to a 2nd-story building opposite. Drunken confidence overcame my nerves, and I took a run up and made the jump successfully, even landing with a sweet commando roll. To this day, the most dangerous thing I've ever done. Too long didn't read. I'm an acrobat when drunk. Story 10. I was at the celebration of life for a good friend of mine that passed away. There were a solid 300 people there. Everyone was asked if they had any memories they wanted to share or anything they'd like to say, to come up to the stage and speak. Well, everyone was very apprehensive, and I was nervous to be the first one to speak. I have trouble speaking up at my restaurant server meetings, let alone in front of people. But when I saw that no one wanted to start, I felt a little bit of adrenaline run through my legs and arms, gulped the last of my wine, and walked up to the stage. I told a funny, semi-inappropriate story of our youth, and it was a hit. From there, many friends felt less anxiety and started speaking and telling stories. It was a proud moment of mine. Story 11. Eventually, nothing happened, but it was such a moment. A friend of my father, who's Turkish, was having a fierce discussion with a group of Kurds, like 7 guys. It looked like this was going to get physical between them. My dad and I both have beers in our hands, and as we sense it's going to get violent, we both, at the same time, put our beers down on the table. The moment that we accepted that we were going to fight 3 versus 7 very much felt like a screw it, I'll do this moment. Eventually the Kurds just buggered off, but I did make my old man proud. Story 12. I just drove home from a 4-hour dental procedure, 8 fillings and a crown. I was high out of my mind and thought, I'm so tired of the plywood subfloor in the bathroom. If I don't lay that self-leveling compound right now, it is just never going to get done. Fast forward to my fiancé coming home as I'm drooling all over myself like crazy and pouring concrete. He was a little more than worried. Story 13. Switched dissertation topics 5 years into my PhD. New project was my own idea, and very risky, as it was a novel idea that no one in my lab, advisor included, had any idea about. Had to buy several components for the experiment, but I figured, screw it. If I'm wrong after all this work, then academia is not for me. Graduated 2 years later, and I'm about to get a patent on the only single acquisition super resolution imaging system in existence. Still, my proudest moment is when I decided to say, screw it, I've talked about this long enough, let's do this. Story 14. In labor. Had been in early labor 4 days, and in true labor 7 hours, taking me into a 5th day. I was finally pushing, and I was so tired. But I was so sick of the midwife saying, one more push, I was just like, right, this actually will be the last. And with that, I rage pushed my daughter into the world. Story 15. I was 12 and out skiing with the school ski club. My friend and sister found an off-slope trail in the woods. It terrified me from the first look, but my younger sister did it, so I couldn't wussy out of it. Then was my, screw it moment. Ended up running into a tree and breaking my leg, but I got to see my bones sticking out of my leg, so that was cool. Story 16. When I got my tax return right after graduating college and decided to blow it all at once on a 1,300-mile-long distance unsupported bicycle tour. So many people, including on the internet, said it was irresponsible. Well, it was the best thing I ever did, and now I'm gainfully employed and suffered no consequences, except having done something I can be immensely proud of. Story 17. Back in high school, we got to talking to our somewhat attractive female teacher, 6 out of 10, about dyeing her hair. My friends dared me to ask her if the carpets matched the drapes. I literally said, screw it, I'll do it. I went to in-school suspension for 2 days. No regrets. Story 18. When I went to China without a hope or degree to get a teaching job. I have to work for 5 hours. Was not expecting an overwhelming response to this. I'll be sure to get to everyone, but I'm at my job teaching English right now. Story 19. Went to a party, met a cute girl. After it was over, I took her back to my place. Things quickly led to another. I tried to go down on her, so I took off her pants, then panties, only to find out she's on her period. Screw it, I'll do this. Definitely a different experience knowing, Story 20. The cops came and broke up a house party I was attending at Rutgers. Friend said it as a joke, but I was hammered and stood on the hood and peed on their windshield. I got an ovation from the crowd and felt like a total boss. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.